A war of words is raging between political economist Mr. Phumlani M. Majozi and Action is a leader, Mr. Herman Mashaba. Mr. Mashaba has consulted lawyers and he was on Biz News yesterday to tell us about it. Today, Mr. Majozi is here to exercise his right to reply. Welcome, Phumlani, and tell us how you feel about what Mr. Mashaba said yesterday.
Hello, Chris. Thanks for inviting me to come to talk to you. I think this is the second or third time now I'm on Biz News. I have been very disappointed by Mr. Mashaba. I am very, very disappointed. I had high regard for him. I had huge respect for Mr. Mashaba. And that is why in my book, Lessons from Past Heroes, I have an entire section about Mr. Mashaba, right? The work he has done for South Africa, where he comes from, right? This inspirational figure, this public figure, really, who emerged out of difficult apartheid times to be a businessman, a black businessman, to see that transition, to be part of that transition in South Africa when we moved from the apartheid system of governance to our democracy. He was part of that process. He saw all of that. So he has been, in my life, one of the people I've really looked up to for a long time. And of course, he and I connected years back when he was affiliated with the Free Market Foundation. Because, as some of your viewers will know, I'm a passionate defender and a passionate fighter for human liberty or the ideas of a pro-market economy. So we met back then because we, at the time, we had similar views on what needs to be done to really to move South Africa forward and address the challenges that we face of unemployment, of poverty, and so on. So I've always had, great, I admired him a lot until recently now, where he is really going on a tangent that I cannot understand. Now, Chris, I need to summarize things for you here on where Mashaba is angry with me, right? I have, over the past few weeks or so, I gave a constructive criticism of his leadership, right? It wasn't even I wouldn't call it a criticism, right? It was more of an advice to say to him, look, Mr. Mashaba, you have held great values of pro-market, pro-liberty, and non-racial for a values that advocate for a non-racial South Africa. Avoid aligning yourself with these far left EFF people and other people who are really on the far left and are very divisive, advocate for a racially divisive society, and perpetuate the idea that we as black people, we are still oppressed. The idea that we have no control. The idea that the National Party, Chris, is still around, is somehow influencing things, or at least we have white people who are basically in political corridors who are pushing for the return of apartheid, or in some form apartheid advocates or advocates for an apartheid way of governance, which is not true. Right, we are a democracy. We have been a democracy for 30 years in this country. We are celebrating 30 years this year. We've been a democracy, and black people, Chris, have been in charge of this country for over the past 30 years we are talking about, since our democracy began, right? Black people, the black leadership, have been in charge of fiscal policy in this country. Fiscal policy has been, it's been managed, by black people since our democracy began. Monetary policy has been, managed by black people. Black people have been in control of monetary policy in this country over the past 30 years. The law and order institutions, they've been managed by black people. Black people are in control, right? You go to cities, at towns, it's been black governance, right? So this idea that for some whatever reason, we must perpetuate the idea that, black people are somehow still oppressed, that there are still these white people who are are in charge, or who are setting up our fate, who are masters of our destiny. That is totally, totally misleading. And the idea, this thing of always using the apartheid card, even in basic things around engagements on public policy, right? This idea that Pumlani, when he speaks about, he shows his Pumlani, a private citizen from KwaZulu Natal, from the rural and townships of KwaZulu Natal. He is raising his anger against black politicians in this country who have been governing the country since 1994. He is raising his frustration and saying to them, look, you've got to get your act together. Now, for him to come back now and assail me for that and attack me and issue all these threats that is going to take me to court. Remember, I'm just a private citizen, by the way. I have no political interests of any sort. And he thinks that as a politician who is in charge of a party, a political party that has seats in our parliament, he thinks it's the right idea for him to run after people like us, right? By the way, Chris, I've never said anything in the response in the post that I posted on X. I never spoke about him and Mashaba directly, right? The post that has motivated him to say, look, I'm going to approach legal people or lawyers, whoever he wants to approach. It was never a direct message to him and Mashaba. I spoke about why are we, as people of South Africa, black people of South Africa, accounting for more than 80%, how is it that we are not producing leaders who advocate for the basic traditional values of hard work, family, right, a pro-market economy, that kind of conservatism, right? In my observation, I don't see it. I'm an analyst. I've been analyzing political affairs for 10 years now. I've written a book. I don't see that. I thought at some point him and Mashaba would be one of those people, but it's going on a different tangent, right? But it wasn't about him. It was about my frustration about the leadership, black leadership.
Polani, may I just interrupt you there and read one of your posts to you? And I know this is a post that Mr. Mashaba found very hurtful. You wrote, black people account for more than 80% in South Africa, yet there is not a single black politician who stands for basic traditional values of hard work, personal responsibility, stronger business productivity, stronger families, law and order. Not a single. And you had an exclamation mark there. Do you really believe that there is not a single black politician in this country who has these attributes?
No, I don't. That's my observation. Yes, I wrote that. Yes, I wrote that down. I don't believe there is none, right? And this is not an attack on black people. He turns this thing to be about black people. I'm attacking black people. No, I am not. I'm talking about we are not producing. I'm saying we do not have a black political leader who represents that package, right? Those ideas. We don't have that. We don't have our Vivek, Ramaswamy in South Africa. The person who speaks about only pro-market values, strongly pro-family, pro-personal responsibility, hard work. I'm not seeing that amongst the black leaders. All I'm seeing in our black leaders are this thing of always perpetuating the narrative that for some reason we as black people we're not in control of our fate, right? You have this narrative that one of them is that white people are still in control of the economy. Chris, that is not factual. White people are not in control of the economy. And for me, when I say that, I'm not saying that to defend or be an agent of white people. I am saying that because I don't want such a message to go to where I come from in rural KwaZulu-Natal, to go to where I come from in the township in KwaZulu-Natal, right? To tell young black people that somehow white people are still in control. For me, I think that is damaging. When you should be saying to them, look, we are a democracy now. You've got what is presented in front of you. Make use of it, right? And hold your leaders to account. This narrative is damaging people, people like Herman Mashaba accuses me of being an agent or somehow being paid to say the things I do to defend some white interests. No, I care about black people. And I am saying to black people, the message is very clear. And that is where the masters of our destiny. The idea that there are still people who are still in control of us. That is totally false. White people are largely a middle class. They lost political power a long time ago, right? These threats that white people are going to bring back apartheid, even that is totally misleading. These threats that by people like Herman Mashaba, he goes around and saying you have white people in this country who are really hard at work at political leadership to implement the apartheid system. That is totally misleading and damaging to black people. And those are the people I'm fighting for, right? Because remember, Chris, black people are the ones mostly affected by the levels of poverty in the country, right? According to Human Rights Commission, about 64% of black people, they live in poverty. Black people, when you look at the unemployment rate, right? The black unemployment rate, it's higher than the national average, right? I'm talking about the recent second quarter statistics of this year, right? Where you have unemployment rates of black people about 38%. You have the national unemployment rates of about 34%, right? So poverty, unemployment, that is what impacting people. You talk about the issues of crime, Chris, criminality in this country. In large part, it's black people who are victims, right? Tlatam Kwanazi, the police commissioner in KwaZulu-Natal, is highlighting that these are his words. The problem is the black man in South Africa, right? We need to talk about these issues. You look at the rates of fatherlessness, right? If you have only 32% of black kids growing up without their fathers, when you look at the numbers, Chris, from 1993 up until today, fatherlessness nationally, it has risen, right? It was about just about 40% in 1993, 1994. Today, it's more than 60. It's about 62, 63%, right? This is fatherlessness in the country. So all these things, and we do know what research shows around the world, the impact of fatherlessness, as a contributor to things like crime as well, to things like kids dropping out of school, teenage pregnancies, boys, becoming criminals. All these things that have an impact on our society, right? So these values, I want to talk about these values, Chris. I want my black leaders to focus on these values because the stats are clear that we need to push ahead. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but from where I'm sitting, I don't agree with your statement that there's not a single black politician in this country who actually espouses those values. From where I'm sitting,
that's your opinion, that's your analysis, right? And probably because some of the elements in my statement or the values that I put in them, maybe you agree that maybe one of them is there, maybe it's not there. I'm saying there's not a single politician who has that package. We don't have our Vivek Ramaswamy here, and that is my opinion, right? It's not an insult to this idea that if you say X out of the black politicians, they don't have these certain values. There's nothing wrong with that, right? For me, I'm speaking more about black politicians because I am more concerned about black people in this country, right? Just as Mr. Herman Mashaba is. But I think Mr. Herman Mashaba is wrong. I know he and I are concerned about the issues of black people, but he takes a wrong direction and the wrong approach. And he doesn't talk about the actual problems that people are facing, right? And in my observation, in my assessment, I don't see a politician who represents those values. You think you do, but I do not. That's just my observation. We can do better in terms of producing leaders. Yeah.
I just want to ask you, after we aired the interview with Mr. Mashaba yesterday, you called us at Biz News clowns. So what's your definition of a clown? What makes me a clown, Phumlani?
No, I was upset because you bring Mr. Herman Mashaba on the show to talk about me and I'm not there. For me, in my view, firstly, the first thing is that if you have a private citizen who raises such issues on the internet and says that there isn't the right, values being presented by black leaders in the country, you have to bring me on the show. This is just my view. You rather bring me than the head of a political party in this country, a politician who says that he's in a process of putting some legal documents together to run after me as a private citizen for expressing my opinion. So for me, if you are really the right thing for you that you should have done as business news is to invite me rather than Herman Mashaba to talk about me. If you invite Mr. Herman Mashaba, then it's best that you have me as well, on the show. I don't have an issue with debating Mr. Herman Mashaba on the platform. In fact, I would love to engage him on these issues, right? So he can tell me, why must I be happy about the black leadership in this country, given where we are, right? Why must I be happy? He has to, and what I dislike about what he's doing is that he paints everything as I'm attacking black people. No, I'm talking about the black leaders who are not advocating for the values. In my perspective, I have a right to say that in my perspective, they are not representing the values we need as a society. In a democratic South Africa, I do have a right to do that. So your platform, and I'm disappointed to Alec, who I've known for years now, that he could do something like that. Rather bring me. In fact, I am sitting here because now I said that. Probably, if I had not said that, you would have never invited me, right?
Because I did invite you this morning, and here you are, and you have replied to Mr. Mashaba's statements of yesterday, and we thank you for that.
But what was after I posted that, right? So I wouldn't know if you would have done it if I had not posted that. So for me, you should have people like Mashaba, bring people like us. These are serious conversations, Chris. Bring people like us so we can engage politicians like him and Mashaba in these issues, where they go around spreading the narrative. It's apartheid, it's the apartheid system. Apartheid is still alive. Bring people like us to say, look, let's focus on fixing South Africa. Because that's the way forward, is to fix South Africa.
Thank you. That was political economist Mr. Phumlani M. Majozi speaking to Biz News. And I'm Christine.